Hello everyone, I'm Michael, and today, I'm going to tell you a story. What's the most fucked up thing you did in a sleepover? Story 1. Played with matches. For years afterward thought, I'd burned my aunt and uncle's house down. I was staying with them. My cousin and I were lighting matches in the kitchen and throwing them in the sink to put them out. The head of one flew off and landed in the shelving unit by the sink, still smoking, but when we looked for it, we couldn't find it. It was the 80s, so all those kids don't play with matches ads were everywhere. Hours later, we were awakened by my aunt telling us to get out of the house because it was on fire. Watched their house burn to the ground and was terrified to tell them what we'd been doing earlier. I just knew we'd done it. Carried that guilt for years. When I was around 15ish, which was many years later, I finally told my aunt. She started laughing, and after realizing I'd been thinking this the whole time, hugged me and explained. It had been wiring in the back bedroom. I was an adult before I finally understood, after learning about how fire marshals investigate fires, that it wasn't just an assumption they'd made and could let go of that guilt. So I guess, technically, the most screwed up thing I did on a sleepover was traumatize myself for years. Story 2. I was in the bathroom. I could overhear whispers, so I knew they were going to play a prank on me. I thought that the prank would be that they would unexpectedly break the door open while I was in there. So, to counter-surprise them, I decided to only pretend I was on the toilet and to instead hold the door shut by pushing against it with both palms, adding my weight to the door and preventing it from being pushed open. However, that was not their intended prank. They thought I was on the toilet, far from the door. So their idea was to have a sword thrust unexpectedly through the door. The sword went through the door and then straight through the palm of my right hand as well. Blood went everywhere. The sword went in and out quickly. I have vague memories of turning the sink on and wrapping my hand with hand towels even while blood spurted throughout the room. I don't remember getting in the car, but apparently, I was driven to the emergency room. It's now 20+ years later. The rest of my hand is fine, but I have a small scar of light-colored flesh on my palm where I no longer have any feeling. Usually when I mention the story, I just say that I was stabbed through by a sword when I was a teenager, without going into detail on the how and why, which is significantly more stupid. The same person who did this prank on me decided to prank someone else by holding a knife right above a sleeping person's eye so that when they woke up the first thing they'd see is a knife blade close up. Thankfully, that particular incident resulted in only a scream, with no physical injuries. Looking back, I suspect he may have been an unhealthy friend to hang out with. Story 3. Got a bloody nose. It was dark, and I didn't know the house, so I stuck near the walls and went down the hallway and found the bathroom. Got the bleeding to stop, cleaned up, went back to sleep. In the morning, the mom came in frantic, making sure everyone was alive after she saw smeared, bloody handprints all the way down the hallway. Story 4. We were all like 9 or 10-year-old girls and everyone else had fallen asleep except for me. So I decided I would play a prank on them. I got up and shook a good amount of black pepper into my hand and went to several of the girls and held it under their noses. What I was thinking would happen was they would wake up sneezing and be like, "Hey." That was silly, but instead they ended up waking up crying because they inhaled pepper. And turns out black pepper being inhaled into a sensitive orifice can really fucking sting. The girls cried so hard that my parents woke up and I had to explain the whole innocent idea behind my scheme. I felt so bad. Story 5. So my house never had junk food when I was little, and when I slept over my friend's house, I ate an entire Chips Ahoy container while everyone was asleep and then put the container under her little sister's bed, who then got blamed for it and in trouble. Story 6. In Boy Scouts, I was the morning cook, meaning I woke up before anyone else to chop wood, make fire, and get water boiling. I grabbed the hatchet and start splitting a log into little splinters for kindling. It was cold and dewy. The hatchet slipped from my hand mid-upward swing and went flying to the tent circle. It seriously flew 10 to 15 yards and fell straight down through the roof of a tent, where 4 scouts were sound asleep. I'm not sure how long I waited to hear someone start screaming. I probably sat there in terrified anticipation for over a minute. Then, I was worried someone might be hurt, so I crawled over to that tent where the hatchet landed. I super quietly unzipped the flap and saw it landed in a bag of clothes very close to some kid's head. I snuck in, grabbed the hatchet, left the tent, zipped it back up, and finished breakfast. I heard them at breakfast complaining that the raccoons has ruined their perfectly nice tent by clawing a hole in it. Story 7. I got my first period at a sleepover, and lucky for me the first year of periods came with wicked vomiting and diarrhea. So in the middle of the night, right after everyone fell asleep, I destroyed my friend's bathroom with a volcanic amount of diarrhea. Then, on my way back to the living room, where 5 preteen girls were crammed, I proceeded to vomit directly between 2 girls sleeping. I had to ask the mom for help with cleaning up the mess. Story 8. Walked home while everyone was asleep. Didn't tell my friend, didn't tell their parents, didn't tell my parents, just crawled out a window at my friend's house and crawled in a window at my own. Went to bed. Not a single person looked for me in the morning. Story 9. I made my friend. 2 of us stayed at a friend's house in our early teens. We raided their parents' liquor cabinet and proceeded to not understand how alcohol works. We drank every kind of liquor under the sun, very quickly, over the course of a few hours. We chased shots with popsicles and ate animal crackers to get the taste of gin out of our mouths. One of the 3 of us stood atop a small staircase into the living room. Maybe 4 steps, a few feet in distance. He swayed, grabbed onto the railing, turned pale, and then projectile vomited so violently that it all landed and splashed at the bottom of the staircase, leaving the steps clear, minus a few drops. He then immediately fell down the stairs and began to laugh in a pool of his own vomit. We picked him up, dragged him to the bathroom, stripped off all his clothes, and shoved him in the shower. He had thick curly hair that was filled with bright red popsicle-colored animal cracker paste. I told him to put out his hands as he kept yelling to not tell everyone he had a small dick. Once he finally complied, I poured shampoo in his hands and told him to clean his hair. He slapped it all into his face, causing him to gag and his eyes to burn. At this point, I had to get him cleaned up. So I did. We had no spare clothes for him barring our friend's brother's clothes. He was quite a beast. We had to get a belt and tightly tie what I can only describe as parachute shorts around his waist. We went to sleep afterwards and convinced ourselves no one in the house heard us. Story 10. I don't remember what we were looking for, but me and another friend went through our buddy's parents' bedroom drawers and found a VHS tape. We were curious and idiotic, so we popped the tape in to see what was on it. Our buddy walked in while we were watching his parents have sex. His scream was the most shocking, horrifying thing I have heard to this day. Story 11. One of my buddies in high school would bully me all the time, and he treated me like shit when I was staying over his house with other friends. One time he told me to go get him a glass of water, so I went upstairs, poured him a glass of water, dipped my nuts in it for a few seconds, then gave it to him. Story 12. We found Kraft singles in the fridge and put one over the nose and mouth of a friend of ours, who fell asleep on the couch before everyone else. It immediately softened and molded into a cheesy seal over his face, and he stopped breathing. We all freaked out for a solid 10 seconds, very quietly, until we heard him make a chewing sound. Smelled cheese and took immediate action despite being unable to breathe, and just straight up ate a mouth-sized hole into the single unconsciously. We then proceeded to plaster the entire package onto his face one at a time and watch him hoover up the cheese slices in order to not die. Story 13. This is not the weirdest thing, but something that has always stuck out to me. Had a girl tell me that she knew someone who masturbated by holding themselves up at the top of a door and basically doing pull ups against the door to get off. She even demonstrated it for me. Then she took a very long shower with a detachable shower head. She came out silent and out of it for a bit. It didn't occur to me until a few years later that she had the most defined arms out of anyone I knew at the time who was our age. I remember thinking that was weird since she played soccer, but her upper body was ripped. Also, no one would make that up and say it was their friend because it was so strange, and she was way too good at it. I tried after her thinking, sweet a new way to get off, but I could only raise my body a few times. Anyways, girl got off from the corner of her closet door by doing pull ups. Story 14. I peed on my friend's couch during a sleepover. I was 10, kinda old to pee the bed, I know. I woke up in a panic, of course, but discovered the couch cushions weren't sewed to the couch, and they were identical on both sides. So I flipped that shit, changed into a spare pair of shorts, and went to sleep. A year later, while I was at that friend's house, his mom discovered my huge, yellow piss stain on the bottom of a couch cushion. Of course, She didn't suspect me. My friend's little sister took the heat. It was me, Mrs. Schofield. I pissed on your couch and let it soak for a year. Story 15. Was at a sleepover. My buddy slept on his couch. I slept on his beanbag chair with a blanket. After hours of playing 007 GoldenEye, I get up and go use their restroom. Except I didn't. I only dreamed I did, and I pissed all over myself at like 4 a.m. I hid the blanket in their jacket closet. It was summertime, and threw the beanbag chair and my pissy underpants in their outdoors dumpster. They lived on a ranch. I was 14 at the time. Lol. Story 16. I had a sleepover at a friend's house. Pre-teen boys, so we were stuffed in one little bed. I got a nosebleed, but slept through it for about an hour. I noticed eventually and got up to tend to it. My friend woke up while I was in the bathroom to what looked like a scene from a horror movie. I did not get a second sleepover. Story 17. So, I have a history of sleep-talking walking issues, and they're especially heightened when I'm stressed. I don't like being away from home, so sleepovers are a recipe for disaster for me. Lo and behold, I woke up one morning after my first sleepover to the horrifying news from my friend that I started sleepwalking, yelled, karate chop over and proceeded to ruthlessly swing my arms into my friend's stomach, effectively waking her up out of dead sleep. We were 8. This was the first time I slept over her house, and I had never told her about my sleepwalking problems. She still makes fun of me about it to this day. Story 18. When I was a stupid kid, I got invited for a sleepover. It was a few of us and we would be going paintballing the next day, through generosity of the host and his parents. Now, I knew most of them from my school but was really only good friends with one, and he had suggested they invite me as he knows I like to paintball. In the night time when we were all in the living room being loud and dumb kids, I stupidly said the host name was probably upstairs fucking his mom. Everyone bust out into laughter. Well, I said it loud enough that they heard upstairs as well, and his mom wasn't very happy. The next day, it was brought up, and they completely blamed the wrong person. I never said a word about how it was me. That was maybe 10 or 11 years ago, and I still think about it lol. It was so rude and unnecessary. I wish someone had ousted me, but you live and you learn. Story 19. Was probably in like 6th grade maybe. Buddy of mine had a birthday sleepover. Had a super cool basement with pool and gamacube, and a mini fridge, dope parents who bought us pizza and all that. It was about like 15 of us spending the night. At some point around like 2 a.m., someone wanted to play Mario Kart, and all you heard was a big crash, and suddenly a very faint. I think I just spilled orange soda on the gamacube. Cue a faint sound and yeah, gamacube was fucked. Buddy's parents were not happy. Pretty sure that was the last big sleepover like that. Story 20. Got hammered at the bar and slept over at this couple's house. I never got the tour, so didn't know where the bathroom was. I woke up having to puke and shit. I alternated, but I got shit and puke everywhere. They didn't have toilet paper, so I used a bag of cotton balls, which wouldn't flush. So I put all the wet cotton balls back in the original bag with my shit-covered underwear and threw the bag away in their kitchen trash can. Their dog was watching me the entire time. I left before they got up and never spoke to them again. Story 21. We had a code church group sleepover at a Vermont farm. I was 13 and recently got a fake testicle. I had my other testicle removed due to an accident. I was getting people to feel my balls and take bets on which one was the real one.